Cool intro sound.
Alright, how's it going guys? AlphaYGO back at it again, and today we have something unfortunate to cover, which is the end of our boy Thunder Dragon Colossus. And of course this list is very flexible, very interchangeable with what you guys want to be doing, because the ratios aren't set in stone. It's just a theory and strategy I'm trying to portray with this list that I want you guys to take away from this, right? So obviously with that, we've developed a going second list for Thunder, which I think is a really interesting take on the deck altogether, and I think a really awesome way to play it in the upcoming format because there's a lot of great going second cards. But talk is cheap, and I want to explain to you guys how this list will go, so let's get right into it. Of course, with most Thunder Dragon lists, nothing is actually that out of the ordinary, so what we have here is 3 Batteryman Solar. This is the normal summon we opted for in this deck because this is what's going to let us make Link 4s actually, and allow us to link climb up to that point and break boards and like go for OTKs, because obviously with link 4s we have Boral Sword of Mind, which is absolutely amazing. That's why we end up going with this card, because it's very explosive, and even though it might be a little fragile, hopefully our going second cards will let us disrupt our opponent to the point we can let this play go through. And of course following that, we have 3 Vanilla Thunder Dragon, obviously very powerful, especially with Titan because it equals 2 pops on its own. 3 Roar, 3 Dark. And of course, in my opinion, one of the best ones actually at this point is Hawk, because this plus Batteryman Solar equals Link 4 plus Titan, which is absolutely amazing. And of course, we have 2 Matrix. Now, this is a bit unorthodox. Obviously, it's usually 3 Matrix. The only reason we're opting for going only 2 is because 3 is a little bit bricky, and one of the main perks of Matrix was it allowed us to basically pop things during our opponent's turn because it's a quick play effect. It can happen in damage step, which is absolutely great. But in this list, our attempt is to only really win in turn 2, right? So I think with that in mind, I think you only really need 1 Matrix because Matrix doesn't really do too much for our strategy altogether. Obviously, as we go with the list, you can see that it's really easy to bump this up to 3. I'm just running 2 because I just prefer it at 2, but it's really easy to bump it up to. And the last Thunder monster is Duo, which is just a giant monster that helps you close that game. Now we have 3 extenders in the form of Luna the Dark Spirit. Luna the Dark Spirit is just another version of Hawk at this point. I think overall it's pretty good. It's not exactly what Hawk does, but Hawk is still a Thunder Dragon monster, which means it acts as fodder for Titan, but Luna Dark Spirit is still a good extender and helps us extend our plays if we can't have access to Hawk. For our spells, we have 1 Thunder Dragon Fusion. I'm only running 1 in this case because it's always searchable in the combo. You can bump it up to 2 as well, because again, like there's a lot of flexible spots in this, so you can bump it up to 2 if you want to start grinding a little more, but I think 1 is just all you really need to facilitate the OTKs. And of course, for consistency, we have triple Allure Darkness. I know in a deck that's really mixed with light and dark, it's a little risky, but I just like Allure in this deck a lot. I'm not running Desires in this deck. You can definitely run Desires if you want. I just opted not to. If you really want to run Desires, I also say go for it. And then we have 1 Gold Sark. Gold Sark is just like the 1 card engine starter, right? And of course, from this point on, we have 3 Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is something that I was actually running 2 of, but I kind of thought about it. Instant Fusion just plus Thunder monster equals Titan, and at that point you can start going off with your plays because hopefully you open the going second card to kind of help facilitate the Titan to pop everything that your opponent has. And of course, if you don't go for Titan, you have access to Thousand Eyes Restrict, which is actually a great going second monster because your opponent always has to respond to it. But I can see that 2 Instant Fusion was fine. I just bumped it to 3 because I just realized that power is really good in this deck, but this is one of those cards that can easily be swapped out for another Fusion, another Matrix, for Pot of Desires, stuff like that. So now for our remaining 10 cards, these are all the going second cards that I plan on playing in this deck. These are actually just like 10 blank spots realistically, because these can be any going second cards you want, depending on how the format changes up, depending on what your locals is saying or what your regionals is saying. These are 10 different flexible spots for your going second cards, which are Dimension Shifter. Obviously, Dimension Shifter in this deck is supposed to be a double-edged sword, but doesn't hurt us as much as our opponent, which is really important. And it can even act as a pseudo extender. Of course, it breaks upon having more copies of it in your hand, but it's actually really good for what it is. Really cool plays you can do is like, if you have Dimension Shifter out in your grave, you can actually use Luna the Dark Spirit to get rid of it, and then you have your empty graveyard again for another Dimension Shifter, which is actually really funny. Dimension Shifter is just another hand trap you could run. It just happens to be something that helps Thunder but really disturbs other opponents' plays. I think the absolute best hand trap coming in the next format will be Droll. I only think this because in my opinion, some of the best decks in the format are gonna be like Guru, Heroes, Spiral, and all those have a hard time against Droll. Ironically, if we just had Colossus, it'd be the same thing, right? Which is really funny to think about, but obviously without Colossus, we kind of need to rely on other ways to shut our opponent off from all those pluses. So, you know, Droll might be a way to go. But moving forward, I think another great package for the next format will be the Kaiju package. And of course, I'm only running this 2-to-4 ratio here, but Obviously, this can change as you like. I think the reason the Kaiju package is actually going to be really important is because if people are just deciding not to play Orcus, Salad, and Thunder, obviously this just depends on whether people decide to keep playing the decks or not, right? Those 3 decks created this format of destruction doesn't really mean much, right? Like, these board wipes don't do anything against these decks when you have Dingirsu, when you have Banlist, when you just have Thunder Dragon fusion monsters with built-in protection. All these things didn't really matter. But moving forward, we might see changes in what types of boards people are putting out, right? But yes, the ratio we went for was the 2-to-4 ratio. It was just the ratio that was working out for me best. And it was the double Radion that we went with because obviously we're running a Lure. And we ran the 1 Thunder King because it's searchable off of Fusion in some situations. And of course we have the 1 Jizukiru base at the level 10, which in tandem with Titan can let us actually go for Gustav Max for burn damage, because our extra deck is really wide, so we might as well run different utility cards, right? And my last 2 spots in the deck are just 2 Twin Twister. I just think the next format is actually going to be relatively back row heavy, so rest in peace to Red Reboot, but Twin Twisters isn't actually too bad, because by having some Thunder Dragon monsters in our grave, we actually open up our options, so this isn't too bad. And of course, starting with our extra deck, we have 3 copies of Thunder Dragon Titan, obviously our new boss monster, or more so our only boss monster. Then we have 2 instant fusion targets with Kaminari attack and Thousand Eyes. And obviously for our link monster, we have 1 a bit of Summoner, Salami. Just really key for a lot of Thunder Dragon plays. Then we have stuff like Link Karibo, Phoenix, and Unicorn. Phoenix and Unicorn obviously for breaking boards. Link Karibo is just because, the Battery Man token and like Matrix can be linked away for a token, can be linked away into a Link Karibo, and sometimes you just need an effect monster to facilitate your Link Force. And we just needed 1 random Link too. And we're just running Underclock Taker because we just wanted more arrows to point down. And of course, it can help us, push for more damage. It can be literally anything. It can be Pentastag, it could be just about anything you can imagine. Then for a bunch of Link Fours, we have, and of course for our Link Fours, we have a lot. We have Avermax, Borreload, and of course, Boral Sword. These are all really great going second Link 4 monsters. Avermax and Borreload are for more niche situations and matchups. Boral Sword is your probably go-to OTK machine. And this card will just let you end games the way it is. And of course this might seem odd, but this deck is able to facilitate a lot of Link 4 plays because of Battery Man, Solar, and Extenders. So I'll just show you in a bit what that combo is supposed to look like and how you can just game your opponent really easily. The last spot is Apollo. Unfortunately, my friend is borrowing Apollo, so I'm just showing you a blank card, which is really unfortunate. Spanko, you're inting me. Anyways, Apollo is really great because if you're forced to go first because your opponent realizes, oh, I'm going to get OTK like nothing, when you make these Link 4 plays, you just have access to an Apollo instead. Along with Apollo, hopefully you have some other good side deck cards and or a Titan with quick to play Thunder Dragon monsters in your hand. So overall, it's not too shabby. And of course, our last spot is just a Gustav Max because with multiple Titans at our disposal, with the level 10 Kaiju, it's just one of those cards that if you're able to make it to end game or burn for game or whatever, it's just a really good card to have. So for this combo, all you really need is 1 Battery Man Solar plus an extender. It can either be Hawk or it can be Luna the Dark Spirit. In this case, I'm going to show off Hawk because it's easier to show off the capability of putting out Titan with this because it's a Thunder Dragon monster. Luna the Dark Spirit is still good in the fact that, it's still going to help you make your Burrow Sword. It's just the ability to go into Titan or another big beater is dependent on the rest of your hand. I'm just going to showcase the most simplest form right now, which is Hawk. And of course, our remaining 4 cards in our hand, because obviously we draw 1 for turn, going second, it's just going to be, hopefully going second cards. And I'm just going to showcase the potential of opening 1 Thunder Dragon, which basically means you're going to be able to pop off really hard, no pun intended. So let's just keep that there as imaginary cards. What we want to do is normal Battery Man Solar. Upon Battery Man Solar's effect, we're going to be able to dump the Roar, and then we're going to use that Hawk in our hand to special out that Roar. And then of course, Battery Man Solar's effect will trigger putting out a token. Now from this point on, we can actually use our token to go into Link Karibo, and then from this point on, we can use Battery Man Solar plus our Roar into something like Phoenix. I'm just using Phoenix as an example, and obviously we'll pitch a card, just draw a card after that point too, doesn't really matter. But of course, upon Roar being sent to the grave, we will be able to summon out a Dark, chain it as you're supposed to, obviously. And from this point on, as you can tell, we have just enough fodder for a Boral Sword drag. Because Dark was sent to the grave, we'll have access to a Thunder Dragon Fusion, and when you use Fusion, we should have enough fodder in our grave with 1, 2, and 3. Obviously shuffle all 3 of these back to make ourselves a Titan. And of course, from this point on, we have a lot of different options. Just to double check, our grave is just full of random fodder monsters, but we do have a fusion for next turn if we somehow don't OTK them through this. I don't know if they have Battle Fader or some nonsense like that. Of course, with our hand, if you decide to use the Phoenix play, you get to replace the card you just pitched, which is really nice. And of course, if we open a vanilla Thunder Dragon in our hand, we can easily pitch it to trigger off our Titan 2 times to pop, 2 cards in the field, which is absolutely amazing, opening the doorway for guaranteed OTK at this point, right? This is just a lot of damage. Alright, but with that said, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I know it's a bit of a wonky list, but it's actually genuinely fun, and I think has a lot of potential in the upcoming format because there are a lot of great going second cards out there. So maybe try it out, see how you guys like it. It might not be the most consistent because Thunder Dragon has always been a fairly bricky deck, but obviously you can kind of change this around to like boost consistency. You can run Desires, you can run Phantasme. There's a lot of things you can potentially run in this deck. But I think the playstyle that this deck portrays is actually really neat, really powerful, and a new take on what modern Thunder in the January 2020 format can be like without Colossus. But with that said, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.